In 1999, Apple released an editing program called iMovie on the operating system Mac OS. Going through many updates and fixes, iMovie is now a stable platform for video editing and trailer creation. In 2011, however, the great minds at Apple created another video editing program, Final Cut Pro, 8 years after the release of Adobe Premiere in 2003. Both editing softwares are non-linear editing programs that allow the user to create videos to their heart's content. But which one do you choose? Initially, iMovie is the choice to go with, as it is a free editing software available to all Apple users. Every MacBook purchased brand new today comes with the application already installed. It features the choice between a new movie or trailer, and then one can start editing. With a new movie, you can drag and drop clips into the timeline easily from your desktop. Simple cutting and combining media has never been easier. Final Cut Pro functions identically with iMovie, with dragging and dropping clips, cutting clips, and adding music to your videos. The real difference comes when you try and affect your media. Now, a few caveats before we begin this video. Number one, I am not a professional editor. I started using iMovie back in July of this year, 2019, because I wanted to film some things in regards to my trip to Texas, and then eventually it sort of morphed into a vlog type channel. Number two, I just started using Final Cut Pro within the past week. Now, before I started doing that, I did have some experience in high school with an editing class I took. Well, an editing class. The class is called Mass Media, which, if you didn't know, is basically just a way to get one word out to a lot of people in pretty much the shortest amount of time possible, mainly through video and editing work. So the way that we created our videos and the way that we edited them was on Apple computers, and we used the editing software Final Cut Pro. I am in no way an expert with either of these systems. I've gotten very familiar with iMovie, but Final Cut Pro, I still have a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to do with it, and I just downloaded the free trial of it, so that's what you'll see in the top left-hand corner. It is an expensive program, so I just want to put that out there, but without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's get right into it. So we'll open up iMovie. We got a bunch of stuff on here for my own project, so we'll go ahead and we'll create a new movie. And we'll take some effects, and we'll go with the old school TV, the VHS tape overlay, and then we'll zoom over here and we'll put a green screen on here, the explosion. So now we have all our clips. Let's go ahead and let's start editing. So let's say we want this part of the VHS and then this part of the TV. Now we have our VHS tape overlay here. So what we can do is we can go ahead and we'll click on the top one. We'll go up here to this button. It's used when you have any overlays or something on top of another clip. We'll go down to blue and green screen. And so now what we have is our VHS overlay on top of our TV to kind of represent static. But let's say we want to add this explosion as well. Well, if we try to drag it in, it just erases our VHS static. If we try to drag it on top, it erases our VHS static as well. So there's no way you can put three clips on top of each other. You can go up to titles. You can add a title on top, but you cannot add three separate clips on top of each other. So what we need to do is we need to export it. So now that we've exported our file, we can go ahead and we can drag it back in here, and then we can drag our explosion over here, and we'll go ahead and we'll get rid of this. We'll go ahead and we will silence this clip, and we'll cut it right here because we accidentally added the explosion in. So now that we have our VHS overlay on top of the TV, we can finally drag our explosion on top. We'll click this button again. We won't go picture in picture. We will go green screen / blue screen. So now we have an explosion on our TV. So now that we've taken a look at iMovie's editing software, let's go ahead and let's take a look at Final Cut Pro. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pull up our Final Cut Pro as well as our effects, and we're going to go with the TV, the VHS tape overlay, and the explosion. Minimize that, and we'll go full screen for this project. In our iMovie, we want to take this part and then we'll take our green screen effect, we'll put it down here for now, but we'll take these two parts and we'll get rid of them. So right now we have our VHS overlay on top of our TV. So we'll go over here to the effects, we'll go down to keying, and we'll take our keyer and we'll put it on the VHS tape overlay. So as you can see, we now have our VHS tape overlay with the static on top of the TV while it's still visible. And let's say we want to add this green screen effect of an explosion. So right now it has priority, so it's just the explosion and nothing else. So we'll go back over to our keyer effect and we'll add it on top of the explosion. So now when we play it back, we have our static and then there's an explosion as well. We didn't need to export anything, we didn't need to put anything back into the timeline. Everything is made really simple and really easy in Final Cut Pro. Now let's take things a little bit more simpler. Let's say you don't always know how to do the keying effect. Let's say you don't really know what you're doing. You just get Final Cut Pro for the first time, or you get iMovie for the first time. Well, it's very easy to do things. Okay, so let's take this very simple video of me setting up the camera, and then I just stand there and give a thumbs up. So we'll cut it right there, and then we'll cut it right there. So we don't need these parts. And let's say we want to add this apple and this pear on top of our video. So we'll go ahead and we'll put them up here. It doesn't really matter the order all that much, but what does matter is how you do it. So double click on the apple. You don't have to double click, but we'll go down here, and then as you can see, we can move our apple around the screen. We can make it smaller, we can make it bigger, we can reverse it so it's upside down. So we'll take it and we'll move it right here. And then for the pear, we'll move it off to the right, and then we'll make it smaller. And let's say we want to rotate it and then we want to invert it. So now we have our pear like that. Easy transformation button. As you can tell, we now have two fruits and it's very easy. And now we're here in iMovie. We'll just go full screen. We have pretty much the same video of me standing here, pretty much doing nothing. And then we'll take our pear, we'll drag it on top. So now right now, it's just kind of there. It's in the middle of the way. We'll go up to our button here, which is the overlay button, and we'll go to picture in picture. So now we have our pear here, and we'll make sure that we can fit the entirety of the thing in. So now we have our little pear here. And we'll go ahead and reduce that, so when we play our clip, the pear is there. Thumbs up, fruit video, we like it. So now we want to put the apple in, but we can't. It takes away the pear. And this is a problem, because if I want to put both the apple and the pear in the video, I'm going to have to export it. Dragging it on top just takes it away again. Try putting it at the beginning, but it's still not going to work. We can try shortening the clip down to 1.9 seconds, and we can try to put it in here, and then we can go up and we can hit picture in picture, and now we just have an apple. So we have is a pear, an apple, and a pear. And this is really frustrating, especially when you're trying to do very complex edits. You have to continuously export your file in order to get what you want. And while we're on the topic of iMovie and all this stuff like this, let's say we want to extend this video out. It doesn't last that much longer, it's just kind of me walking back to grab the camera. And we'll move up to titles, and let's say we want to have this centered title. Drag it on top. Let's just say that it's called, so we got a title, this video is amazing. It just sits there, but you can't move it at all. You can't move it around the screen. There's no box down here that you can move. You can sort of move it with spacing and tabs and stuff like that. Maybe I want it a little more to the right, we can do that. Let's say we want it a little bit down the screen, we can just space, but eventually you run out of spaces to use. And let's say in the bottom right hand corner, you want to put your name on it. Well, sorry, you can't do that, because if you take the lower title and you try to drag it in place, it removes your initial title. So now we can't say our video is amazing, we just have this. Let's say we want to put our name. Well, that's all we can do unless we export it and put something else in. It may be an absurd piece of criticism, but I definitely think this is where Final Cut Pro stands out from iMovie. You can add multiple titles on top of each other, often allowing you to create more of a funnier video. Let's say you want to add a hold, and then you can put some sort of disclaimer at the bottom, or you can put a joke in there with the sound effect. You can do all that stuff, but in iMovie, this is the best you get. You can only add one title at a time. You can't put titles on top of each other or else they just go away. And you can sit back and think, well, of course, this is just a simple editing software. You have plenty of titles to add exactly what you want. You can have the scrolling title like from Star Wars. You can have the pull to focus title, which will drag all of the focus onto the title when you do it. You can have a zoom title. You can have the boogie lights. You can have a lot of different titles. But none of them matter if you can't stack them on top of one another. Let's say you try to make an edit where you have your main title right here on the screen and then you want to put your name down here. Well, sorry, you're going to have to export it, and then you can go ahead and you add your second title. I have no idea what this is going on down here, but I suppose you can just add titles in here. But the problem arises because you can't have any other footage. If you try to drag your pair in here, it's just taking up an entire area. Heading back over to Final Cut Pro, we can easily add and edit titles. You have a wide variety of titles that you can choose. Some are very complicated, like the slide title, where it kind of goes between different things, and it's really creative. My personal favorite is the simple custom or basic title. You can drag it onto the screen, you can double click, and you can drag it wherever you want. So let's say you want to have one title here. You can go ahead and drag another title onto your timeline, double click, and then you can drag it down here. And it's really simple, and you can add a lot more onto your timeline. So now when we just play this video, we've got 3 different titles going on, and everything looks really good. Let me give you an example. In one of my recent videos, Wednesdays Are the Worst, I tried to put 2 overlays onto some stock footage of me walking in between classes. I'll go ahead and play the clip for you right now. Just like magic. So what I did was I had my regular stock footage and then I had my hypnosis overlay on top. And then what I wanted to do was add a third overlay of the VHS tape to sort of add a little bit more of a static feel, a little bit more of confusion to match up with the music and what was going on at that point in the song. But when I tried to add the VHS overlay, it just deleted my hypnosis overlay, and then I was initially confused because I didn't know what was going on. So what I had to do is I had to go back in and export the file, import it back into the timeline, and then I could add my third layer. Now, the most you can really do in iMovie is 2 layers and a title, and that's pretty much it. Anything else will require an export and being dragged back into the timeline, which is not very time consuming unless it's a very long sort of edit that you're doing that you need to export and then re-import. But it's more of a tedious process, and it's something that most people like me don't really want to go through because you pretty much just have to wait for like 10 seconds and then you have to go back to editing when you could have been spending those 10 seconds perfecting what you're actually doing. Now, iMovie is made for very, very simple edits. You pretty much have your video, maybe add some background music, and then you can sort of get creative with the jump cuts, edits, and transition slides. But with Final Cut Pro, you can really test what you're able to do. You can add many titles, you can add many transitions, jump cuts, zooms, multiple layers, multiple keying effects. You pretty much have a blank palette. And then it's your job as the creator to define what you're doing. Now, I don't have any examples from iMovie to show pretty much how basic my edits were, but I do have some examples from Final Cut Pro that I can share with you guys. So I'll show you guys an example here. This was the first video that I ever edited in Final Cut Pro on my computer. As you can tell, we have a lot going on, and that's good. And so for the starting sequence of the video with the introduction, we have many title layers, many things going on, so I'll go ahead and I'll play that for you guys.
Sorry, green, blue, purple.
Wow, we about to burn the fucking club down.
So as you can tell, It may not be the most complex of edits, but it's definitely something iMovie would struggle to do. With many exports, many layers, iMovie would just struggle to do it in one simple edit, and exporting would be required. Let's move on to something else. We have an overlay footage of me sitting in the bottom right hand corner with the product that I purchased specifically in this episode. And even right here, this website, f150leds.com, as you can tell, I have many text boxes on top of each other. Let's count them. 3, 6, 8, 9. We have 9 different titles on top of each other, which, if you count, that would require probably around, let's say 8 exports to stack each title on top of one another. And then you'd have to edit it and make sure that everything is exactly the way you want it. Then we go to the final, where I've mentioned before, if you want to add the joke. I actually do that in this video. I am trash. I put a hold on this clip here, added a title saying self-deprecating jokes, and then a crowd booing sound effect. So as you can tell, Final Cut Pro allows you to expand your videos and allows you to reach new lengths when editing, whereas iMovie does not. I would also like to point out the video that you are currently watching right now. This is the editing in it. This is what we have. This is the intro right here. And if we zoom out, this is pretty much everything that I've done. This is the video you are currently watching right now. This is a lot of editing, from all the titles and the actual title of the video to pretty much all of the audio that matches up pretty closely with the actual on-screen demonstrations that I do, and there's still more editing to go. At first, it may be an obvious choice. Final Cut Pro is the better option. With more editing abilities, more options, and overall better experience, Final Cut Pro might be the editing software for all Apple users. But with one look at that price tag, you might change your mind. Although iMovie is a free program, it lacks in a lot of places. There are not as many transitions, the titles cannot be moved, and complex edits require exporting and being put back into the timeline. With Final Cut Pro, one can easily edit their video in any fashion they want. iMovie restricts complex edits and limits potential. Final Cut Pro allows the user to explore the editing world and allows the user to challenge themselves to create something beyond their abilities.